Hello. Today I thought I'd finally get around to making this deck profile. It's my Kristyasworn recipe, and it's the deck I've played the most over the last 2 years. I probably have around 500 sets with the deck, and it's refined to the point where I'm actually comfortable making a profile on it. So yeah, let's just jump into it. It's almost max rarity. I think it's probably is like satisfactory level of rarity that I'm not going to go bother with the last few pieces. But yeah, it's very nice if you enjoy pretty cardboard. Um, and yeah, so Judgment Dragon, I don't really need to comment too much on this one. He's one of the big boss monsters of Edison format. Incredibly iconic, and it's a build around card. To go over the fairy engine of Kristyasworn, I'd say on the heaviest side. I've thought about this, whether I want to play 2 or 3 copies. So you can make the case for consistency. The 2 is better in the early game. 3 is better because you see it more often. My choice to play 3 is based off of mainly the math surrounding seeing a copy of Krystia as close as possible to hitting 4 copies, not after hitting 4 copies. So if you play 2 copies, you'll see Krystia and 4 fairies, including Krystia, as usually your 17th to 18th card, but if you play 3, it's 15, which basically means it's like a turn 3 or 4 play to drop Krystia most of the time if you play 3, which basically just makes it better. It's also a good mill, right? Light Fairies and Lightsworn names are the mills of the deck. Getting on to good fairies, I play 3 copies of Herald of Orange Light. This is the European Ultimate Rare print, so it's quite a deep foiling. Very iconic. Good in many formats, good in Tillaments, good in fairies, good in Drytron, amongst other things. And it's one of the few hand traps in Edison that is like almost truly uninteractable. Like there's My Body as a shield to stop it, and then there's Stardust Dragon to stop it. But other than that, it pretty much just runs rampant and you can use it whenever you want. It's not affected by Light Imprisoning Mirror. It's not affected by pretty much any other floodgates that I can think of. So yeah, it's one of these that just goes wild, along with Honest. Honest's on field effect obviously gets stopped by Light Imprisoning Mirror, but it tends to just win every battle interaction. It wins versus Shrink, it wins versus Collude most of the time. It wins versus itself if you priority in damage calc, so that's sub-step 4 for those new to Edison. Because if you do it as sub-step 4, they must reply as Chainlink 2 or decide not to chain their Honest, in which case yours will be Chainlink 1 and will resolve with the additional attack that they'll have gained. So always use Honest in damage calc. That is unless you're playing the Fairy Mirror, which is a cringe mirror, but what you do then is if you're afraid of Herald but not Honest, you do it in sub-step 3 so you can shotgun a second Honest. But it's a bit of a giveaway if you have a Honest in sub-step 3, so yeah, it's a weird one. Getting on to the named fairies, we play 1 copy of Shire, which to most people will make them wince if they've played Lightsworn for any amount of time. I wasn't sold on this card in the beginning, but it has since changed my mind. It's not standalone good, but it is just good. The fact that it's level 4 or lower target for charge lets you search to help you modulate your fairy count. It also means, because it's level 4 or lower, that Lumina can regulate your graveyard by summoning it back. It's an enormous piece late game because you play 9 other names, so it can get to 3,100 attack as a normal summon. It also lets you regulate your grave with Krystia for a normal summon, because yeah, you can grab Honest with Krystia, which is often very strong, but this as a like just direct beater is very good. It's the biggest single normal summon of the fairies that you can manage most of the time. And even if you just get JD live, this thing goes to 1600, so it's fine. It's there because it's a name. The fairy that is there not just because it's a name and that is just very strong is Celestia Lightsworn Angel. So this card, for those who don't know, is a if you tribute a Lightsworn to normal summon it, it's cost mill 4. Then you can look at your mills and decide what the 2 targets you want to pick are. And you don't have to pick 2, it can be up to 2, which means you can choose to dodge Starlight Road, you can choose to pop the monsters if you mill a wolf and you want extra beaters. If you hit a wolf, for example, and they have back row, and the wolf itself is game, you can hit the back row and then the wolf is just guaranteed to go through. so it's very, very strong. Gives us a reasonably high fairy count, I think, with everything included. Let's see, that's 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 is good. Most of the time, I get 4 fairies with this many names around, let's say, 12 cards into the deck. Maybe 13, 14 cards into the deck. Onto the other names. So Wolf, you play 3 copies. This is a triple Celestia build, and it's also a Beckoning Light build, which means additional copies of Wolf in hand are not really a massive problem. You have many ways to get rid of it, being Charge for Lumina, Lumina herself, Solar Recharge, Beckoning Light. You have Herald plus a level 4 for Brainiac. There's many ways. It's to the point where it's actually just much more often good than bad. You'll very rarely lose a game because you opened 1 Wolf. Specifically, it's actually just very normal to draw into Wolf. And you just build for it to the point where it's most of the time not an issue. The one that you absolutely have to max on, though, is Lila. I would say she's the single best of the normal summons. And the reason is because she clears the way for the boss monsters. So off Beckoning Light, you can grab back away to clear back row, to clear Royal Oppression, to clear basically a bottomless that's waiting to hit your Prio JD. And additionally, she's just the best one with Honest because she basically just clears a monster and a spell or trap and mills in the end phase. I'd call this an active miller because it's a same turn mill compared to, for example, Raiko, who has to wait a turn and then maybe gets the chance to mill 3. There's also the upside of this card that it can mill more than 3 if it's around for multiple turns. And if you stick a Lumina, for example, this can clear their spell or traps the next turn and then allow you to go for a Celestia play once the back row is clear, or a Herald Synchro play. Usually it's Lumina, Lila plus Orange Light to go into Mistworm, for example. She also enables Tempest Magician, which very rarely comes up, but that's worth knowing. Then for the rest of the names, we play 1 Gareth because it's a name. It's a very good name. I know some people are cutting it in favor of Jane's, for example, but I think this card's interactions with Raiko, Lila, Lumina are just far too strong. I think the fact that it's a name that doesn't activate makes it strong in the Gladiator Beast matchup. And yeah, I think we have to make a compromise anyway because it's a name, so it's just good. Same with Jane. I think Jane is a card that some people play multiples of because it's a very good standalone beta. It's another active miller. Some people even they go as far to play Reinforcement of the Army to search it. I think that if your plan is to play a very simplified game, that can be a decent strategy, but in Kristyasworn, you really just want to tutor to the bombs and not really worry too much about playing a simplified game state, because if the game state is simplified, Kristya tends to win. You only really tend to lose in the early game against aggressive decks. Then we go and play 1 copy of Erin. If you've played the Blackwing matchup extensively, you'll come to dislike this card, but if you play the Frog matchup, enough times, you'll come to like it. Erin is a very good card in the Frog matchup when she can attack, because obviously she can't attack through hard dupe lock. She can attack through soft lock, and she can spin dupe frogs. She can also spin flip-flop frogs. Funny interaction there actually is that if you clear the other frogs and then she attacks flip-flop frog last, it'll be shuffled back to deck when it triggers when it resolves in substep 6 even, and then it won't be able to bounce any of your monsters because they'll at that point control 0 frogs. The best one in the Frog matchup is not even Erin though, it's Arcus. If you have this plus Honest or this plus Threatening Roar, they cannot clear it. They have to rely on Dark Dust Spirit, which they most of the time don't play or don't put in, or is a one-off that they might not draw. Or they have to rely on a normal summon beta in multiples, because you have the Honest in that they must attack over it, because if this is the only card you control, Caius, Riser, etc. are mandatory triggers. If you put no other cards on the field, they have to banish their own card to get them on the field, essentially. So they risk going like -2 or -3 into an Honest, and they won't usually do that, or they won't have the resources to do that. The other thing that's very nice about Arcus is that it prevents your Lightsworns in name engrave from getting hit by DD Crow, from Soul Release. You have to be careful that it also prevents you from going Krystia, Target, Shire, and Celestia, but it is a very, very strong card. It's also very good to swing into opposing Raikos because it affects the entire field, so their Raikos cannot target your Lightsworns. It also works the other way around, by the way, so just be aware of that. And it's a very good card in tandem with another beta like Gareth, for example. Lumina's obviously, I think, most people's favorite and the best one because she's the only one that puts two bodies at the same time on the field outside of, Lucky Wolf Mills. I think she's pretty strong, but maybe a little overrated in the sense that people tend to lose games because they just autopilot Charge of the Light Brigade into Lumina, use effect, hit a bottomless with no Honest to protect the Lumina. Hit a bottomless with no Honest to protect Lumina, or they hit Royal Oppression after siding because that's a card that very much it gets sided in against Kristyasworn. Also, Light Imprisoning Mirror, like it loses a lot post siding, but it is strong enough that you always keep it in, even though it's a deck devastation target, like Raiko. I play one, but I would like to play two. There's just no card I would cut for it. I think it's really solid as a one-of. Whenever I see the second copy, I feel like my hand gets a little too slow. But it's good enough that I really don't fault the people who play two. I just wouldn't go over 40 to do it or cut any of my choices. I think it's a perfectly fine card. I like the arguments that it's the best into all back row because it can't get hit by battle traps in its flip, doesn't get stopped by bottomless or these chainables. It's in damage step, so they can't fire most of the time, which means it does just clear back row. They need 3 monsters to do damage through a Raiko because if they have 2, or 1, let's say, then they attack with 1 into Raiko, you pop the other monster, and then nothing goes to a direct attack unless they have that third. So it's just very good. The reason you play one of these is because, you don't want to clog your deck with too many normal summons. After all, Orange, Light, and Honest can sometimes be normal summons, but yeah, I mean, talking about normal summons, we'll move on from the names. We play 1 copy of Card Trooper. This card's very pretty in the light, so I'll pick it up. Yeah, I have since my last profile destroyed my DLG1 Super, so I got the actual max rarity, ignoring the prize cards. The new prize cards don't appeal to me because they're just modern prints. But yeah, Trooper is amazing. Obviously, he, if destroyed by any means, gives you a card, which is very important. It's the out to a Cyber Dragon. It's a main phase mill, which is phenomenal. And then the obvious last card amongst the monsters is Necro Gardener. Necro Gardener, with a nice circular foiling going on there, is very strong because it can be used at any point before the end of their battle phase, which means it's very flexible for stopping attacks. It means if they do have Soul Release, you can just chain it to that, and it still gets its value for that one turn. And it's very strong for surprising your opponents by discarding it in their battle phase using Beckoning Light. I'd say most of these are standard choices, with the exception of Shire and perhaps 3 Krystia. Some people choose instead to play more Raikos. Moving on to spells. We play the given Charge of the Light Brigade, triple solar recharge. So Charge of the Light Brigade is very few archetypes have a starter this good. It is truly exceptional. Cost to mill, with the knowledge of what you mill, is so high impact because it means that if you mill a good card for Lumina to revive turn 1, you can search Lumina. If you mill a Wolf, you don't need another beta, for example, and you can instead grab a Raiko for a battle phase pressure and set. The fact that you can grab any name before you Beckoning Light to make sure that this always grabs you a name you don't have is very powerful, and it's teched into many other decks for the same reasons I've just described to you, that people play it just to search Raiko. It's that good. Solar Recharge. This card is infamous for being one of the highest going first win rate cards in Edison format. If you are playing Lightsworn and you open this card, you automatically have a 60 or 65% chance in a vacuum of winning that game. Just on average. Someone did a nice statistical analysis. I think it's Red Gadget. Yeah, I would recommend that, but This card's great. You play 40 cards, if for no other reason than to make sure you maximize the chance of opening one of these four. People go as far as to play Gold Sarcophagus to search these as a follow-up play to make sure their engine gets going and they get past the early game. But I don't approve of that because I think you'd rather just play active cards, live straight away cards. I think the value of Gold Sarcophagus goes down tremendously after the first or second turn of the game. And it's contingent on you having like a good enough play on turn one. Because if I open Gold Sarc but I have no other starters or enablers, and I just have to pass on an open board, Blackwing are just going to start normal summoning and attacking, and I might just die before it resolves. Going on to the rest of the spells, we play Foolish Burial. So Foolish Burial is really good because straight away you can special summon a wolf from your graveyard by sending it. Triggers its mandatory trigger, which is nice. You can also send a fairy, usually a named fairy like Shire or Celestia for Judgment Dragon, but mainly to get that fourth one for Krystia. And occasionally if you have Beckoning Light and 3 or 4 fairies in graveyard with maybe some number in hand, you can send Krystia itself. Then for the board wipes, obviously Heavy Storm. This is the best one, the single best one, because it clears the problem. If they have a Lingering Floodgate, Defisher, or Macro, or whatever it is, Limb, this clears the problem, but it runs into Starlight Road, for example, which is not ideal. Unlike Cold Wave is nuts. I don't know how this card exists in its form in Edison. I think Kristyasworn was probably up there with Glad Beast as one of the first decks to truly break this card. I would say Kristyasworn is probably the single best Cold Wave deck because you go Chainlink 1 Cold Wave start of main phase 1, chain the Beckoning Light, so you get it out of your hand, and then if they don't respond to the Beckoning Light, everything you pick up from your grave is going to resolve. You can rig Judgment Dragon, you can rig Krystia, and at the point that you establish Judgment Dragon plus Krystia, and they can't special summon or activate or set spells and traps, you generally just win the game. The very few outs to that are something like Herald of Orange Light or Lingering Floodgates, because they will still remain active. Like if they chain Limb to this, then you don't get to stop the Limb. However, most people, advanced players of Edison will know, but new players won't. If they chain Royal Oppression to this card says your opponent cannot play or set any spell or trap cards. So play also applies to the usage of face-up continuous quick effects on spells and traps. So they can't chain Royal Oppression that's already face up to your special summons after this resolves. It's a phenomenal card. Then we move on to the trap cards. Spread this out so you don't get as much glare. We play 3 of the best trap card this deck can play, which is Beckoning Light. This is the oldest of the prints, I think, so it's nice. Yeah, a wonderful card. If you don't know, this is not a cost to send card, and it does not target, which means it never conflicts with Arcus. It means that your opponent has to preemptively crow to stop you from picking up your Judgment Dragon or Krystia, otherwise they just go to your hand. It's really cracked. It's really cracked. It's like this card itself is what enables you to play 3 Wolf, to play Necro, to play lots of one-of names. A lot of the time you resolve this card and you win. If you mill all 3, it's kind of sad because you won't be able to get back anything in the grave, but in general, it's really, really good. And then the card that I probably have to convince people of the most, to which I just say play the card and see how you feel about it, is 2 copies of Threatening Roar. So Threatening Roar is, I think, the single best trap you can put down to back up a Lightsworn board, barring some matchup specific card like Mask of Restrict for Frogs or Royal Oppression for Gladiator Beasts. So this card basically resolves unless it's negated, to which very few things negate it. So there's Trap Stun, Solemn Judgment, and that's kind of it, Royal Decree. Everything that doesn't generically negate traps, this will not be stopped by Mystical Space Typhoon unless it's in the end phase of the turn you set it. It resolves. The reason that's so important is because all you need to do is resolve a bomb and get enough mills going to resolve the bombs. And this card can enable you to get like 6 or 7 more mills. It can enable you to then tribute summon Celestia or tribute summon Kristya, whatever the play is. It can save you for a turn when they go for a push, and then Judgment Dragon just completely sweeps their board because they went for a game shot. And it means that if you play obviously these two together, 100% of your back row is chainable. It means you basically entirely negate the impact of cards like Mystical Space Typhoon and Heavy Storm. Mystical Space Typhoon mainly because the fact that you play Lila means they generally won't set Mystical Space Typhoon unless they can, freely chain. So it's really, really strong. I think the fact that it just goes neg1 is offset by the advantage you generate off it, and the fact that it just makes other cards in your hand live. It's not the be-all end-all. I know some people play 3 and Mirror Force. I think that requires you to have a somewhat active hand, because if you just have Kristya, Judgment Dragon, Wolf plus Threatening Roar, you're not really advancing your game state, and it's another card you can, in theory, brick on. But you just need one Lightsworn name to go with it, so I think it's a perfectly good 2-of. I would consider playing more, but only if I somehow gathered the space to play more than 40 cards, which I probably would not do. Okay, so I'm going to show you the extra deck before the side deck, because it's somewhat of a given. I play 1 Chimeritic Fortress Dragon because we side Cyber Dragon and main deck Card Trooper, so 1 will never come up during game 1. More than 1, pardon, will never come up during game 1 because we only play 1 main deck Machine and don't main deck Cyber Dragon. In the side deck, I play Cyber Dragon, which means in theory I could resolve Cyber Dragon multiple times with Beckoning Light, but I don't play more than 1 in favor of one other choice that I'll show you later. Armorion, it's the only level 4, so you play it because of that. Catasta, this is one of the 2 cards not in max rarity. I love the Ultimate Rare personally, so I don't really have any aspirations for the DTP1 print. We play Magical Android. She's obviously the best generic level 5 because she's light for honest and also just the highest attack. For the 6s, these come up the most. You play Orikizas. He pretty much only comes up if he's a game shot. We play Tempest Magician, same reasoning. She only really comes up if she's a game shot. You make her with Lila, by the way, in case you're curious, because we play level 2 tuners along with level 4 spellcasters. We play the limited copy of Brynak, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, as well as the 1 copy of Goyo Guardian, the second card that I don't really have aspirations for the DTP print because Ultimate Rare exists in 1st edition. We play Ancient Sacred Wyvern. You can make this with a level, what would it be? Yeah, you can, in a very rare situation, make this with Lumina plus Raikou plus Herald, but usually it's just Cyber Dragon plus Herald. And this is a very nice game shot because it just gains attack equal to your life points, and it's also a fairy, so you can synergize it with Kristya. The main level 7 you go for, though, is, of course, Black Rose Dragon. Very pretty Ghost Rare print. The artwork, if you can see here and here, extends beyond the frame. So, yeah. Shout out Konami for printing overframe cards in 2008. Stardust Dragon, it's the 8 that comes up a lot, usually to just insulate your other boss monster. Very strong card. 8s in general aren't very common for this deck, but we play them because there's a lot of extra deck space. The one that you can cut for the second Chimera tech is this. You can make it with, let's say, Lumina plus Arcus plus Herald, for example, but generally speaking, the other 8s are made more often. This is nice for game shots with Honest, because you just turn like a Kais to defense and then attack it. You gain 2400 attack, hit into its 1000 defense with Honest, and yeah, you do 4000 damage off that. for example, but it's like a 3 or 4 card combo. Doesn't come up often. Thought Ruler Archfiend is nice to gain life points, maybe get you back within the amount of life points to activate the Judgment Dragon. And then Colossal Fighter sometimes comes up to play through Honest, and the one that comes up the most of probably all the non-level 6s is Mistworm, because you go Lumina plus Lila or some other level 4 plus Herald, and that's how you get to 9. Let's see, side deck. I'm willing to hear a case for improvement, but I would say generally speaking, I'm very pleased with it. The most important card, the Gauze token. No, it's not Gauze, but Gauze is the first one because it's the biggest monster. So this is the unlimited print from Retro Pack. Yeah, to pull it, it's quite rare and short printed. Pretty penny. It's nice. It's basically for aggro matchups. You put it in going second, and that allows you to just not die early for when they have a card that's very good at dismantling your opening hands, because you generally won't set your traps early on, like Beckoning Light. So if you open this plus Beckoning Light, it's really not the worst. You just hold off on Beckoning Light. Then we play 1 copy of Cyber Dragon. So this is the Euro print, but it's a played copy because the name is a bit damaged there. But it's a very, very useful card. So you can obviously grab it back off Beckoning Light to out their machine board, which is really nice. It allows you to go for a Black Rose nuke play with Orange Light. It gives you a lot of going second pressure, which this deck just struggles with in general, going second. Like most decks in Edison, but I would say a little more so because this deck requires setup. And then you still play 1, even though Blackwing is so ready for this card, Consecrated Light. So this card in general is either a win, like have the out or you lose kind of card that you put in for Blackwings. You can add it back off Krystia. It's a fairy, but you're also like, it's a double-edged sword. It's a monster that gets hit by Deck Devastation Virus. So I don't side that many copies. I think once they've already established like a monster out, like Cyber Dragon or Fossil Dino, it's really bad to have multiple copies. So I just play the 1, and then I never have to worry about having a weak hand because they already have the out. But yeah, this card is just too good. Even though they side for it, they side like 3 or 4 cards for it, you do still need to play it. Okay, last ones. Onto the spells. So I would say probably the best of these is My Body is a Shield. So this card is really, really, really important going second. So going second, your biggest problem is I try normal summon Lila, they hit me with Bottomness, I'm too far behind, I lose. I try go for Lumina effects, they go Royal Oppression. I try go let's see, like Special Summon Krystia effects, they go Chain Bottomless Trap Hole. I go Normal Summon Celestia, I go effect, Pop 2, they go Starlight Road. All those things get stopped by My Body as a Shield, and you don't have to preemptively hit the back row. It allows you to just actively play into back row the way Cold Wave would, except you can activate this card in the same turn you activate spells. It doesn't require its own turn dedicated to it, where neither player can activate spells or traps. It gives you a little bit of insulation versus Dark Arm Dragon and opposing Judgment Dragons and opposing Herald of Orange Lights as well. Just a really solid card. I've seen people main deck this card. I've seen people want to put it in at 2 copies, but I think the life point cost becomes a little too steep at 2 copies. I would instead play other cards, like for example Book of Moon. This card is your out to Vanity's Fiends type cards. And Kristia's, it's your answer to Summon Test Tiger effect. It's your answer to many things. It allows you to actively play. It allows you to get multiple uses out of Raikou. It allows you to get over cards you wouldn't otherwise be able to get over, like for example Arcaius. Just very, very solid. Matchup specific, I know some people play multiples. I personally opt to play 1 because I think I'd rather play just more cards concentrated around making the engine work. But I do understand the theory. I wouldn't bash them for it. It's just not what I prefer to do. Then other back row hate. So we play obviously one copy of Mystical Space Typhoon because it's the single most reliable removal after Heavy Storm. But to accompany it, we also play one copy of Giant Trunade. So some people main this. I choose to main Cold Wave instead. This is better for the matchups where they put lingering floodgates, like Light Imprisoning Mirror and Skill Drain, because this answers an entire board of spells traps through Starlight Road. Unfortunately, some decks just main deck 2 Starlight Road, and you have to be very careful about blind hitting back row in general. So I'd much rather have a piece like this where I can just use it and then push through an established board. And then now all they have in hand is back row, and they have to clear my established board. So this card is phenomenal. It's very, very strong, but it's not for every matchup. So traps, the traps I play are very matchup specific because I don't like the theory of playing lots of traps in Lightsworn. I think in general, like for example with the Lightsworn mirror, I don't put in like floodgate traps the way some people do. They put in either Decree for Beckoning Light or they put in Royal Oppression to hit the others, but I would just rather be the Lightsworn player with more combo pieces. And I'd rather make them the ones with less combo pieces. So to hit their combo pieces, I play 2 Trap Hole, a bottom Trap Hole that is. This is for Frogs, Black Wings, Vayu, Lightsworn, any deck like Glad Beasts, just where you need to basically stop a problem card. This card keeps Glad Beasts so honest because of Bestiary. It's really solid and it just stops you from getting steamrolled early. A lot of the time you're just there wanting to resolve your mills, and this will give you a turn in the same way that Threatening Roar would, but within certain matchups. So it's really strong. I think I also double down on the idea of clearing their monsters and giving you more turns with Mirror Force over the 3rd copy of Threatening Roar. I think the fact that you play all Chainables game 1 makes Mirror Force a stronger card to side than main, because people will just play into your back row with the idea that you use it whenever you want anyway. And they will side out their back row hate. So many matchups will just, like, unless it's Frogs and they're expecting something like Mask of Restrict, they will pretty much not blind hit your back row after game 1, unless they have a play they really need through. Then the last, I'll say non-floodgate card I play is just a card that is standalone good. I know some people choose not to play this because they say it's at best a 1-for-1. But I think Trap Does Shoot as a card you'd put in going first in the matchups where it's obviously good is just too high impact. I think this card is so obnoxious and it's up there with Brain Control for the cards people hate the most in this format. Yeah, I think going first, the fact that you can just go normal summon Lila with an Honest in hand, set this, and see their entire hand, pick apart their best card, and then you know exactly whether you can play into back row or not, or you can play aggressive or not. It's too, like, the better you get at the format, the more useful hand knowledge becomes. Then onto the floodgates, so I'll just go with the obvious ones. So for Frogs, 2 Mask of Restrict. This card says Frogs cannot play, no Substitute, no Tribute Summons, no Sword Exchange. You can take my monster with Brain Con, but I'm getting it back at the end of the turn. Really solid. Randomly also hate for Assault Mode Activate, because starters can't tribute, and Assault Mode Activate can't tribute. Yeah, it's funny. But yeah, it's just a win button if you can protect it. You probably side out some number of Celestia to put it in, to be honest, because you don't want to clog on it. But if you stick it with a Krystia, they just have no out, essentially. Or at least very few. 1 copy of Royal Decree. Some players have played Trapstone as an alternative. I prefer Decree because it's a permanent answer to back row, where I can just flip this card and then in subsequent turns, the Krystia that I redraw or the Judgment Dragon that I have been holding for this card to resolve will then just sweep. I get that this has counters like Mystical Space Typhoon, whereas Trapstone doesn't, but in general people will also side out cards like Mystical Space Typhoon against me. So it's a weird one, to be honest. I can see the case for both. I've just personally been more fond of Royal Decree because it gives me 3 or 4 sweepers with Trunade, Cold Wave, Heavy Storm, and Decree, which gives me a really solid chance of just opening one sweeper card that will address 90% of back row boards. And then last card, this is a flex spot. I can see the case for many different cards. Free the Brave Wanderer, Call of the Haunted, Kaiku, many different options. I personally go for 1 copy of Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. This only hits 1 card in my main and just main deck, being Necro Gardener, but if you see this and Necro Gardener, you can just chain the Necro Gardener to this card's activation on your opponent's turn. It's really good because it's mainly for value. You just need a bit of help in the value matchup because the things you're really worried about are the bombs and the early kills, and this prevents both. In the sense that they will summon Greffer, use effect, and you'll stop it. They'll go Kai's effect, you'll stop it. They will go Dark Arm Banish, you'll stop it, and you just won't lose your boards, essentially. It puts you back to a simplified game state. Oh, also Plague Spreader Zombie, that's another big one. Forces, like, you immediately make up your card economy if they have to go Plague Spreader Zombie, neg 1, and stack their deck, so they're going to draw into their dead card. I think it's really strong. I think like little one-offs like this that are just standalone good for certain matchups is how you side as a Kristyasworn player, because you can't take out so much of your engine. It's not good. You need a big enough core to actually draw into everything. Yeah, it's really good. In general, I put somewhere between 3 and 6 cards in for every matchup, I would say. I'll give you a quick demonstration. So for Black Wings, you will put in this going second, these 2 going second, but generally these and this. So these 6. For Frogs, you will do these. 1 second, get these out of the way. You'll go these plus these. For Gladiator Beasts, you will put in these. I would not put in, and this obviously. I would not put in a cut. Oh, and these, of course. Yeah, so Gladiator Beast is quite heavy because you have to take out Herald and Kristias. The fairies are actually a liability in that matchup. I would not put in Decree because it's, I think, too easy, generally speaking, for them to pop Decree. And then versus value, I would put in this definitely for deck dev, along with probably, yeah, it depends if you go first or second. I would say going first, probably something like this mainly for oppression, because they always put 2 oppression in for you. If they're not maining oppression, it goes in for you. And this, of course. So going first and then going second, you can substitute something like maybe this or this for Cyber Dragon, so you actually are able to play. I don't put in Consecrated Light, generally speaking, for value, because they put in their own Cyber Dragons and Diners. And then, yeah, this is also an option depending on the type of build. The problem I have with this is if they go Greffer effect, discard, like you have to put this only going first and hope to draw it against value, because if they go Greffer effect going first, discard a card, set a card, yeah, you might already not be able to hit their hand the next draw phase. And yeah, I think if you learn to hold your resources until you can make a push call with this deck, it's very strong. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments. But other than that, yeah, have a good day.